All right, so if you can see the Prezi, you can see me, then we can go ahead and hit start at exactly 12:15 as scheduled. So hello and welcome. I'm super excited, like I told you guys earlier, about teaching this class because it's been a while since I taught it. And between the time I taught it and now, there has been like a lot of feedback, positive, about how people are implementing things that they learned. So as you probably already know, this class was a spur of the moment, like my almost typical impulsive jumping in and wanting to help when, the spaces was going on a couple of weeks ago. And the sentiment was that people are overwhelmingly wanting to parent better. And that made me really happy because when people want to do better, that's the first step in the stages of change model, if you're aware what that is. In the stages of change model, there's pre-contemplation, then there's contemplation, then there's action. A lot of people are in the pre-contemplation stage where they're thinking about changing their behavior. However, we can pre-contemplate, we can be ready to act, but if we don't have the knowledge that we need, we're going to be even more frustrated because we are still going to continue the behavior, even though we've made up our minds that we're going to stop, very much like what's happening with our children. This is the analogy that I usually use with my clients. Imagine that you just hired a new, like maybe a household assistant, right? But they're from another country. For example, one of my friends, au pairs, just came from a different country and English is not her first language. And so imagine that she's out and about and someone comes around and her staff member takes a message. Because her staff member is not fluent in English, when she returns and tries to deliver the message, it's going to be quite disjointed. Now, I want you to imagine that of all the responses she could give to her staff member, because of her frustration of not understanding and missing important parts of the message, she hits that staff member because how dare you not be able to deliver a message correctly? The problem, as you can tell with that situation, is that it's not for a lack of trying. The staff member would like to share the message, probably feels frustrated as well. However, she does not have that behavior or that skill in her repertoire. So as hard as she tries, she's going to be frustrated because she has a knowledge deficit. So much like our children, when we get frustrated with them, adults who are parents who are trying to do better, we have a knowledge deficit as well. So as determined as you are to parent better and to do better, you find that you still struggle because when it comes to time to implement, you don't have the skill that you need. There's a solution to that. If there's a knowledge gap, we feel it. If we feel a knowledge gap, when you're faced with the situation again, you then have the skill and you can use it. So parents want to do better. Parents are making up their minds to raise their children better than they were raised. Can we fill that knowledge gap? We learn to cook, we learn to drive, we learn to read, we learn to write. We have to learn to parent. We don't just know it automatically. The idea that we will show up in the world and just know how to do things without having to learn it, where did that come from? So that's what we're trying to take care of today. That's the problem that we're trying to solve. So let's jump right into it. If I can get my Prezi to work. Okay, there we go. So 1 second, I need to minimize. Why are we here? We want to do better and we want to be better. Pretty simple. Let's establish some common assumptions though. And forgive me, I might generalize. It's going to be hard to find assumptions that fit everyone in this meeting to a T. Just let's establish these as the assumptions that we're working with in this group, okay? The first one is that we all thought that it would be easier than it is to parent. So for a lot of us, we're learning on the job, but think about it, we get years and years of school for math, for our jobs, for other things, but we don't have formal like learning systems for parenting. So there's no surprise that it's a struggle. Also, to be clear, and I know that this is debatable, I personally do not think that we can clearly and neatly divide parents into good parents versus bad parents. Parents, for the most part, of course, giving a few exceptions, want what's best for their child. So it's not good parents versus bad parents, it's people, human beings who are both, I mean, good and bad, I guess, but who make good and bad choices. So you have parents who can make a good choice sometimes and a bad choice sometimes, but we want to avoid the idea of dividing people into good parent versus bad parents, because not only is that not helpful because it leads to a lot of shame around parenting, it doesn't serve any purpose, because when you have called somebody a bad person, you've taken away their incentive to actually do better. So parents generally want what's best for their children. We all agree that children need discipline and guidance. Parents don't want their child to be spoiled, because you don't give birth to a child and want their future ruined, right? And also, you're the one who's responsible for them, not all those other people. So the outcomes that they have, the outcomes of their choices, you're affected by it. So you really, really want what's best. So when you hear parents fight for their rights to hit their kids, they're convinced that it's because they want what's best for that child. So you're the expert. Like I usually tell parents, I couldn't possibly love your child more than you. So I don't get to tell you that I think something is better for your child than you. That's pretty presumptuous. You're the expert. You're the one who has to live with the outcomes, right? What you're doing right now, it makes sense to you. And you not only stand by it, you fight for your right to keep doing it. Now, here's something we have to realize. It's going to be hard, or perhaps impossible, to find a universal consensus on what good parenting looks like. We're all different, and our actions are based off of beliefs that are anchored in our hearts. Ideas about parenting, ideas about respect, ideas about culture, they're going to vary vastly. So we're not going to find one definition that fits the whole world. So when you come to parenting, you have to come to it humbly, knowing that your own set of core beliefs or faith or absence of it is very unique to you. That is why when we work on parent training and deciding what appropriate behavior or inappropriate behavior looks like, we do what is called value-aligned parenting. You align your parenting style to your core values. There are no set of good values versus bad values, or that your values are correct and other people's are incorrect, right? So we're all different. Your faith or absence of it will heavily influence how you parent. The way you were parented will as well. Your culture will, whether you are aligning with your culture or turning away from it, all those things will influence how you parent. So you're the expert. And we've talked about this, you mean well. Your parents may or may not have gotten it right 100% of the time, but they tried their best. They did what they believed to be the best at the time, or not. It's a hot button topic. I don't get to debate your lived experience, but remember, it is your lived experience and it belongs to you. But generally, parents do what they believe is best. The question, though, is that, do good intentions preclude harm? Should the well-intentioned choices of parents, should it make up for the harm that they might inadvertently cause, right? And should we expect that children will understand? Because after all, it's for their own good. The example I usually use is a personal one. My mom, when she was born, she was the second or third really sickly child. And so they took a blade and they put it to her face. And so she had these two, tribal marks on her face because what her parents genuinely believed to be the best and the most helpful thing to keep her alive at the time was to mark her. Today, would it be okay to take a blade to your child's face? Can we say that my grandparents were bad or evil? However, even though what they did, they thought that they were being helpful, does it somehow cancel the harm that they did to her face? Because she hated it and they hated it for her too. However, the harm was already done. My point being, you can have the best intentions. Nobody's debating the good intentions you have for your child that is informing the choices that you're making. However, we have to be humble enough as parents to realize that good intentions don't preclude harm. We can have good intentions for our children and still hurt them terribly. Think about when you were growing up. For many of us, there were no car seats. We used to ride shotgun. In fact, they would let us stand in the passenger seat in front. You wouldn't possibly do that to your child today, would you? Did the parents who let us ride without seat belts and all those things, will we call them bad parents? Not necessarily. They just didn't know better. They operated with the best knowledge that they had at the time. Will you then say that I didn't need car seats growing up? What kind of rubbish car seats does my child need? It is our culture. If my parents did it like that, therefore they were correct. The fact that they did the best that they knew to do at the time, does that keep us from doing better if we know better? Those are the questions and the general assumptions upon which we're basing these conversations, okay? So who am I and what gives me the authority to teach this class? My name is Bemi and I'm a licensed therapist. I'm dually licensed in the state of Texas as a professional counselor associate and a marriage and family therapy associate. I'm also board certified in applied behavior analysis. I have a bachelor's in behavior science and a master's in clinical mental health counseling. I've been studying behavior and working in the human services field for about a decade now, and I have extensive experience helping people in different capacities, from working in autism clinics to working with federal government agencies as case managers, doing behavior modification. This work, I love doing it, and I love sharing what I've learned, because learning was what was the game changer for me. And I genuinely believe that when people learn better, they can do better. One second. All right, so speaking about learning, let me show you my lab rats. These are my kids, Nathan, Alexis, and David. They're relevant to this conversation because I practiced everything that I was learning on them. And it was in using positive reinforcement when I started to learn about the science of behavior that I realized that, oh, wow, it seems like this science works. So, and you don't have to just be shouting and shouting and shouting every time. And again, because I like to share, I would tell people about the things that I did with them. And soon enough, we created this whole community of parents who were trying to use the science differently. And so I point them out to say that if I can do it, you can do it too. However, it's not like I have hacked it and I'm now precluded from the universal human condition. My children don't behave appropriately 100% of the time, as I do not behave appropriately 100% of the time. The difference, however, is that because I've learned the science, I know what to do and how to respond. And parenting has stopped being this frustrating, aversive thing to this great thing that we're doing together. Improved outcomes in my home, in my relationships, because I've learned how to use the science of behavior. So that's what I want to share with you, a combination of the science that I have learned, not only learned, but also practice. So let's make it as practical as we can. Let's talk about behavior. Applied behavior analysis is the science of behavior modification, is what I got my bachelor's degree in and what I'm board certified in. It's the science of using the principles of learning to change socially significant behavior. So I'll teach you a couple of things that are the foundation of the science because it will be relevant to our conversation about behavior modification. Now, every behavior has a function, and that's a fact. People do things because there are 4 functions of behavior, but we do things mainly for 3 reasons. The first one being to get something, to get away from something, or because the behavior feels good in and of itself. Excuse me. So why did I say there are 4 functions of behavior if there are 3 reasons? It's because one of the modalities, one of the reasons that we do things, which is to get something, we make a distinction between attention and tangible items. So the 4 functions of behavior are attention, to get a tangible item, escape and avoidance, to get away from something, and automatic, if the behavior feels good in and of itself. So a couple of examples. Attention, if I want the need to be liked, to be acknowledged, is a universal human need. So for example, I know the kind of picture to post on Twitter or Instagram to get a lot of likes. That's me meeting my need for attention, right? If I want to get a tangible item, maybe I'm hungry and I want to get a bite, or I'm thirsty and I want to get my water, the function is the reason for why I'm doing what I'm doing. Then escape, to get away from something. So for example, if I don't want to do my schoolwork, I'm going to procrastinate. The function of my behavior is escape and avoidance. Sensory, that's a different category. Those behaviors, they feel good in and of themselves. So those are things like nail biting. You're not doing it to get away from anything or to get something. The behavior feels in and of itself great. If you think about the 4 functions of behavior and you learn and master this, every time you see something happening, and especially in this context, every time you see your child do something, the first thing you respond with is curiosity. I wonder why they're doing what they're doing. If you understand the function of the behavior, you will know what to do immediately after the behavior to increase the likelihood of that behavior increasing or decreasing. So you need to learn the 4 functions of behavior so that you can, if you're interested in modifying behavior, because it is the function that will determine the intervention that follows. So that's the foundation. Operant conditioning is what behavior analysis is all about. B.F. Skinner, I don't know if you all have heard about him. He did these experiments where he was getting the rats in the lab to press a lever. And so if they press the lever and a piece of food fell down, the rats soon made the connection between their action and the outcome. And so pressing the lever, that behavior increased. And so he figured out the theory, which is that the consequence that immediately follows a behavior determines the future likelihood of the behavior. Therefore, if the consequence that follows it, right, if it increases future likelihood of occurrence of the behavior, then that consequence is a reinforcer because the behavior will more than likely happen again. If the consequence that immediately follows the behavior reduces future likelihood of occurrence, then that consequence is a punisher. I'll explain a little more. So I want you to look at this and let me know if you can see clearly. There are 4 consequences of behavior. But to make it really simple, remember that we said whatever increases future likelihood of occurrence of a behavior is a reinforcer. So it makes it go up. So for example, I want you to put in the chat some examples of reinforcers you can think about. The first thing I can think about is my paycheck. If I get paid, I'm more likely to show up. If I do something for you and you say thank you, I'm more likely to do it again. Awards, praise, thank you. Food, those are reinforcers. And what makes it a reinforcer? Exactly, recognition. What makes it a reinforcer is that it increases the future likelihood of occurrence. I like all these examples. Y'all are on it. Reward, recognition, affirmation, gifts, exactly. However, I want you to realize that there are 2 types of reinforcers. Remember, A reinforcer makes the behavior go up. However, it can happen in two ways. If you add something or if you remove something. So if you add something, then it is a positive reinforcer. So think of positive as plus, you add. So positive reinforcement is a consequence that adds something and makes the future occurrence increase, right? So if I study for my test and I get an A, I'm more likely to study the next time. Praise is positive reinforcement because you are adding something pleasant, right? That increases the future likelihood of occurrence of the behavior. Does that make sense? Now, negative reinforcement is minus. You remove something and the behavior increases. So you remove something that is aversive and the behavior increases, right? The key to recognize the difference is, does the behavior increase after that thing has happened? Then it's a reinforcer. However, did it happen because you added something or you removed something? So for example, if I tell my kid, you know what, if you get an A, you're not going to have to do chores this week. That's negative reinforcement because his behavior of getting an A or studying will likely increase, but it's because I removed something. So more than likely what you are removing is aversive, something they don't like. So if you remove something somebody doesn't like lifting a ban or taking away a fine and the behavior increases, it is negative reinforcement, right? So on the other side, there's punishment. Positive punishment, you add something that is aversive, it makes the behavior go down. And everybody can think of a good example of what that is. Please put it in the chat. It's literally the elephant in the room. You add something and the behavior goes down. And it will typically be something that is aversive that makes the behavior go down. What's an example that y'all can think about? Hitting, exactly. Cane. You add something, the behavior goes down. And I like what Uju is saying. She said it's critical to understand because people usually think positive is good and negative is bad. No, in this case, positive is add, exactly. And negative is remove. So there's positive punishment and negative punishment, right? Grounding is withdrawal of access, actually. So grounding is negative punishment because you are removing something pleasurable, right? And a good way to understand it is that a lot of these things intersect. So it's not like a very firm, oh, yes, you got it, or no, you didn't get it. I just need you to get the general idea. If you look at any behavior in your child and you say, why is this behavior happening? Are they trying to get something? Are they trying to get away from something? I need you to quickly determine if you want to see more of that behavior. If you want to see the behavior increase, what do? Let's use the chat, guys. I'm enjoying your feedback. As soon as you see behavior and you want to see more of it, positively, it doesn't have to be positive or negative, it's just reinforcement. Behavior that you want to see increase, you reinforce it. You use positive or negative reinforcement. Remember, you either add something that they like or take away something that they don't like, so you can see more of that behavior. It can be positive or it can be negative. Negative in this context doesn't mean bad. So for example, if I tell my child, like the example I gave, if you get an A, I will make sure that you don't do chores in this house this week. Is it a reinforcer or is it a punisher? What do y'all think? Yeah, Jumi, you're right. Both positive and negative reinforcement will increase the behavior. Thank you. Even though I removed something, I took something away, but it is a reinforcer. What lets me know it is a reinforcer? What is the determinant of if something is a reinforcer? The behavior increases. Thank you, Irma. It increases the behavior. Any behavior that you want to see more of, you have to reinforce it, because reinforcement increases future likelihood of occurrence of the behavior. That is the science. You want to see more of something, you reinforce it. If you want to see less of a behavior, what do you do to that behavior, guys? You want to see less of a behavior, what do? You punish the behavior, right? Punishment is anything that reduces future likelihood of occurrence of the behavior. So you think about positive and negative as well for punishment. You add something or you remove something, right? So physical punishment is the first one that we always default to, but there's so many different types of punishers because it is something that makes the behavior to reduce. So for example, if I give you something nice and you don't appreciate me, is the behavior likely to increase or reduce? It's going to reduce. So you punished me, but you didn't beat me. You took away something pleasurable. So remember, punishment is not in shouting or in beating. The definition of a punisher is something that reduces. I see so many questions, but I seem to be missing them when people are responding a lot. So I want to encourage you to write them down so that we won't miss them for the Q&A after, because I want to make sure I take all of your questions, okay? So if the behavior increases, reinforcer. If it decreases, punishment. If it increases by adding something, it is a positive reinforcer. If it increases by reducing something or taking something away, it is a negative reinforcer. If the behavior reduces, it is a punisher. If it reduces because you added something, it is positive punishment. If it reduces because you took something away, it is negative punishment. We're going to move on so we can cover all of it. So this is the part I usually like talking about. People usually say, so punishment works? Absolutely. Punishment is very effective in reducing problem behavior. In fact, physical punishment especially so, because it delivers instant pain. And that's a universally understood language. If you touch a hot surface, nobody has to tell you to be careful again. You already know. In fact, it's the way we stay alive. Something hurts, we don't go there anymore because we're not trying to die, right? So punishment is highly effective. Physical punishment in reducing problem behavior, very effective. If you don't pay your bill and you get a late fee, is it going to hurt? Yes. They added a fine that will reduce the future likelihood of occurrence of you paying your bill late. They have punished your behavior so that you are less likely to do it next time. If they say people who register early will get a 10% discount, is that a punisher or is that a reinforcer? Register early, get a 10% discount. Because they're increasing the future likelihood of you registering early by giving you a discount. So we get it, let's move on. I've emphasized this because it's really important. The effect on the behavior is what matters. It's not your energy, it's not the intensity, it's not your feeling. How this affects the behavior. I like this question. It seems to be targeted to older children, how effective it is. What I'm doing is teaching you the science. We'll go to implementing it and it will look different for different age groups. It's the same thing for toddlers. Infants literally learn to stay alive by responding to reward and punishment. If a child cries and you pick them up, what have we taught that child? That crying will lead to what they want. The interesting thing about a child crying is that crying will increase because picking them up is something that they like. So the child is going to learn to cry more because they have learned that when they cry, crying is rewarded by comfort. However, because there's more than one person in the dynamic, the parent finds crying aversive. So what does the parent do? The parent wants crying to stop. So they pick the child up. However, picking the child up is rewarding crying. So crying increases and the parent is like, but why won't you stop crying? Well, crying leads to comfort. Do you see how that works? We'll go to the practical application of it, but I need you to understand the principle. Punishment isn't about how you feel. Punishment isn't about whether you shouted a lot or you used a lot of force. If the behavior does not reduce, that consequence is not a punisher. A very good example. That's not what I'm saying, Lola, and I'm sure you know that. I was giving an example, right? So people often talk about how timeout is not a good punisher. And I'll explain why it's a bit complicated. If a child likes to spend time in their room already, do you think that them being in their room is rewarding or punishing? What do you think? I like to be in my room. So you tell me, you're not going anywhere with me today. Stay at home. You think that you are punishing their behavior by telling them to stay. But telling them to stay is not a punisher. And how do we know? Because they are going to continue to do that thing that they were doing that was making you tell them to go to their room. So when people take digs at things like timeout and they say timeout and naughty corner doesn't work, it is because it is not a punisher. So if you keep implementing something and you realize that the behavior is still increasing, what does that tell you? You keep doing something, you are implementing this intervention immediately after this behavior happens, and it keeps happening. Is the behavior being punished? What do you think? The behavior is not being punished because it is what reduces the behavior that's a punisher. Let me give you a real life example and we'll move on. When my daughter was younger and about, I think, pre-K4 or something like that, so she was about 4 years old, I noticed that there was one time that they called, please write your questions down so you ask it during question time, okay? So I noticed that they called me to come and pick her up from school because she got into trouble. And that happened the first day. And then the second day, by the time we got to the third day, I thought to myself that this girl wants to be picked up from school. That's why whatever she's doing that's making her get picked up, she's continuing to do it. Getting picked up from school is reinforcing. Even though when she got picked up, I will yell, I will send her to her room. I'll be like, no TV time for you. Why are you getting in trouble? Because picking her up was reinforcing. But school called me to pick her up and I had to because they said she was engaging in destructive behavior. I was like, destructive behavior, how? So I sat down and I thought about it. So I went to ask the teacher or the head of school. I said, I'm curious about what's happening before, you know, this come pick her up that's happening, you know, regularly. And they said it's usually like right after recess. I said, okay, what's happening before recess and what's happening after recess? They said there's math right after recess. So look at what my daughter was doing. My daughter didn't want to do her math. She takes after me. And so she will get in trouble right after recess when it's time to do math. They will send my daughter to the principal's office. Then they'll tell her mommy to come and pick her up. This girl was getting out of doing math. Please put in the chat what you think the function of her behavior was. Escape and avoidance, thank you. She was trying to avoid something aversive So she kept doing that thing and I kept picking her up. So school thought her getting picked up was a punisher. Was it a punisher? No, because the behavior kept increasing. So because I know the science of the behavior, I thought about what happened prior to the behavior occurring and what happened after, the antecedent and the consequence. So I said to the school, my daughter finds math aversive, like me. There's no surprise there. However, you are putting math after enjoyment, which is recess. She doesn't have any incentive to complete her work, so she's getting in trouble, and we're reinforcing it with a lot of attention because getting yelled at, getting sent to the principal's office, me coming to pick her up, it's a big deal for her. The whole world is stopping in response to her behavior. So I told them, first of all, you put the aversive before the preferred. You put math before recess. Math shouldn't come after recess. So quick behavior intervention plan. Math happens before recess. Access to recess is contingent on completing math. If you don't complete your math while everyone else is completing it before recess, you sit with the teacher during recess and you complete your math, right? Do you think I ever had to pick up from school again for that particular matter? Because I know the science of behavior, I didn't need to yell, and more importantly, I didn't need to hit her. Because if I hit her in that circumstance, that doesn't take away her aversion to math. It makes her hate it even more, right? So do your math before recess. So if, for example, your kid doesn't want to eat their vegetables, there's a reason why dessert comes after, right? So you say, oh, you want a cookie? Sure, I would absolutely love to give you a cookie. When you finish your food and you put the cookie right there and the child is looking at the cookie and the child is looking at the broccoli and thinking to themselves, this evil witch, she will not give me this. She won't give me this cookie. Let me just eat this broccoli so she can allow me to have my cookie. You put screen time after bath time, not prior, right? So what your child likes is a reinforcer. You put it after their non-preferred task. That's why you go to work first before you get your paycheck. If they gave you your paycheck before you went to work, will you go to work? Sometimes we wake up and we're like, oh, I hate that I have to go to work. However, bills won't wait for you. Losing your home is aversive. So you do the non-preferred because you want to get the preferred. I hope you understand that idea. So let's talk about punishment. We've accepted that punishment is effective. So why then are we saying we want to discipline without hitting? Because I've literally told you that punishment, physical punishment works. It is instant. Let's talk about something called ADRs, adverse drug reactions. So the idea about medication is that you will take this drug, right? And it will target the particular area that's problematic in your body. It will go to the disease site and it will not harm healthy tissues. But drugs have side effects, right? So in healthcare, they do something called the risk-benefit ratio. If you take Tylenol and you read all the possible side effects that it can have, by the time you've read it, you'll be asking yourself, is this headache worth this medicine that I want to take? But it's because the benefit is more than the possible side effects, right? So keep that at the back of your mind with what we do in healthcare. So for example, there's something called pharmacovigilance. I'm a therapist, so I'm going to think in terms of pharmacology and what some of the medication that they used to give people, the antipsychotics, we call them first-gen meds. It used to cause all kinds of side effects. So they stopped giving it to people. What did that lead to? We started developing other medications that will not have those negative side effects. So if something is a common practice, given it is an accepted practice, if the risk is higher than the reward, we discontinue it. For example, putting children in unsafe conditions inside cars, the risk is not worth it, so we discontinued it. So in our everyday lives, there are things that have been discontinued steadily because we realized that the risk wasn't worth it. We don't give honey to kids under age 1. For example, I remember that I had a cousin when I was growing up whose teeth became brown because they gave her tetracycline. They don't give tetracycline to kids under age 8 anymore because it can discolor their teeth. Babies used to be force-fed, but we realized that it leads to asphyxiation, right? Babies used to be shaken to make them stop crying. So when we learn that something has a negative side effect, why are we so committed to continuing it just because that's the way it has always been done? I don't know if you guys ever heard about this grandma in the UK who was a nanny. And because she raised her children by force feeding them, she was nannying this kid who just wouldn't eat. And this nanny, she was a 50-something-year-old woman, and she force fed this baby. Baby choked. They called the police. This woman went to jail. The question is the risk that is associated with this habit or this culture or this thing that we believe to be effective, is it worth it? So people say punishment is effective. I was punished, but what are the side effects? Do the benefits outweigh the risks? Those are the questions. So what are the risks of using physical punishment as your default mode of correcting behavior? It models aggression. You are literally telling your kids that this is how you deal with people who you get frustrated with. The interesting thing, though, is that when they get frustrated, they're not allowed to put their hands on you. But when you get frustrated, the most common example that I usually use is, say you have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, right? So the 2-year-old takes the 4-year-old's toy, right? The 4-year-old takes the 2-year-old toy, the older kid. So your older kid did something that you didn't like, right? So because the younger kid takes the toy from the older kid then goes in and boom, 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 right? And then your younger kid starts to cry. And then you appear on the scene and you look at your older kid being an aggressor towards the younger kid. And what do you do as the corrector of the behavior? You then take the older kid and say, I told you, stop using your power on people who are smaller than you. Where did he learn to do that? Where did he learn that if you have more power than somebody, you use that power to show them never to try it again? We are modeling to our children. We are modeling to them every day that once you get power, you flex. And then we are wondering why they are aggressive. Where did he learn it from? From their role model, who used power. So any opportunity that anybody used, did any of you all go to boarding school? Did you see how wicked seniors were? Small power. So this physical punishment that we are shouting, are we fighting for our right to use our power with no one checking us? Because it then becomes a question of who's going to check me? Because I mean, they're your child. And if you look at that dynamic of the relationship, you are the one with the most. These children are vulnerable. And you are going to use your power, and then you're going to come and say, well, they made me angry. We'll get there. Let's move on. Physical punishment can teach what not to do, but it doesn't teach replacement behavior. So when you hit your child, you are teaching them that you must not catch them doing that thing again, but you have not taught them a replacement behavior if the replacement behavior is now not in their repertoire, because they don't have the skill of what to do next time. Physical punishment, it legitimizes violence in interpersonal relationships, because you're going to tell your child, it's okay for me as your father to beat you, but your husband cannot beat you. You have said in relationships, it's okay for us to put our hands on each other. How is your child supposed to make the distinction? They're just supposed to automatically know. It adversely affects the quality of a parent-child relationship. Nobody can convince me that you are in love with somebody who's putting their hands on you. You can rationalize their choice because you have to live with it, but you cannot tell me that you wake up and your heart leaps for joy when you think about the person who is inflicting physical punishment on you, even if the person now comes and tells you that I'm doing it for your own good? Can you not do good to me in a way that does not destroy my life? Let's carry on. Poor cognitive outcomes. Children who get hit, they don't do well because they tend to be anxious, they tend to be afraid, they don't know how to respond because they never learned how to. And I know we always say we turned out right, but I don't know about you. I'm an anxious mess. It's why even though I'm a therapist, I go to therapy. The dominant voice in my head is one of constant criticism that says, look at you. Will you ever do anything right? If I slap you, does that mean that the people who raised me didn't love me? I mean, I was a very challenging child to raise, so I know my mom tried her best. However, did it remove the impact on me? Poor cognitive outcomes. Think about children, as I often say that children's cognition is like building blocks, like Lego. If you take my, I have a class called Mastering Your Emotions. It's a class you are going to need to take if you want to be a better parent. Children have the prefrontal cortex, the upper part of the brain. They're missing real estate in that area. They're born without it. They're born with the downstairs brain, but cognition is developed by modeling and loving relationships. Every time we hit our kids, the thing is like Lego blocks, brick upon brick every day. We have used our hand to take the child that we are building. We have used our hand to tear them down. Then they now have to start from scratch and start building. Also, insecure attachment. That's a side effect. It impacts our mental health, low self-esteem, PTSD. The day I knew I had to stop putting my hands on my kid was the day my kid flinched when I was trying to touch them lovingly. I can never forget. I can't. Do you guys know that that thing is PTSD? It's literally a side effect of PTSD. Where's my DSM-V? The book we used to diagnose disorders. That reflects. Meanwhile, parents like kids. It feeds your ego that when your child sees you, your child does like this. Trauma, but let's make it a joke. It doesn't promote internal control in children. Children who are hit cannot self-regulate. It's just because it's not modeled to them. Also, this is the most important part that I usually explain to parents. Spanking is reinforcing to the spanker. You, that you are using that power, because it immediately takes away the behavior that is aversive, you are going to do more of it when you spank. So if your children are running up and down and you tell them to stop running and they don't listen, you know that if you slap their face, they will calm down. You are increasing the future likelihood of occurrence of spanking. But the question is, if spanking is really such a great punisher, why do you need to use it more and more? Because we have to increase the effort until the child now gets to our height. Is it my 13-year-old that is taller than me now that I want to be spanking? As in, imagine not having any other form of controlling or regulating behavior except that I should slap his face. I cannot. You have passed the stage. And for people who are raising children in America and thinking that maybe it's the culture that is disturbing them, all of us are wired to resist harm. That child that you are hitting, there's something in them that resists oppression. That it grieves the way it grieved your soul, but you didn't have options. So that's where there's an 11-year-old who I got called like in an emergency to handle the problem, because the father is like, traditional, they beat me, I will beat you in this America, I'll show you paper, put a belt on the child. That child is not even as tall as the father yet. The way he grabbed the belt, even the father was like, hey, changed it for the man. Then that child has now gone to go and tell their school counselor that I don't want to go back home because I'm worried I'm going to kill him. Because we don't know how to regulate behavior. And you say you are doing it for your, please, what good does your I get emotional when I talk about this thing. What good does the buckle of a belt catching your daughter in the eye and leaving it bloody? What good does it do for her? Home training. Physical punishment, it reflects low impulse control in parents. And it's ironic because we expect impulse control from our children. Who is the person that should have more impulse control? The person who just arrived in the race of life, or the person who has been here for longer? You have been here longer. They met you here, and you expect them to control themselves, and you cannot control yourself. Who should be more regulated? Your 4-year-old, who it's not that your 4-year-old's prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. They don't even have it. They are missing real estate. Another thing that you know that physical punishment is more about the person is that it is regulated by your feeling. The day you are broke, angry, fighting with your partner, the day at work didn't go well, the children are going to hear it. The day you won the lottery, the day you have money, you're having a good time, they are doing rubbish and you are not punishing. Physical punishment and hitting has more to do with you, your trauma, and everything that you are going through than the behavior of the children who have been entrusted to you. So if you cannot regulate, best of luck. Also, abuse is a thing because people are sure that they will never get to the point where they're abusing their kid. But abuse isn't about your feeling. It is about the impact of your behavior on a vulnerable person. Are you using your power well? I always tell myself, I'm the adult in this relationship. I hold myself to a higher standard of behavior than I hold my children. I'm the one who has to behave. So if my children cannot put their hands on anyone, I don't put my hands on them. In my own house, in our core values, non-violence is one of our core values. Our hands are for helping, they are not for hurting. Keep your hands to yourself anytime you are not stretching your hand in love. It is a core value. It is not because I don't feel like hitting that I don't hit. If you have never felt like hitting your kids or never thought about it, I have a lot of respect for you. Maybe you should write a book or sell the magic that you have. I will buy it because I feel like hitting. However, I am responsible for my response. I choose my response. So when I'm activated, when I'm angry, I keep my hands to myself, modeling to my children what is appropriate behavior when they get frustrated with others. We use our words, and even when we use our words are for helping and not for hurting. How you raise your children is a reflection of your values. It's about time we stopped blaming the children and say, well, look what they made me do. First of all, is your child the boss of you? Or do you want to learn emotional self-regulation so you can be the boss of yourself? Benefits of not using benefits of using physical punishment, because people are like, I'm going to hit my kid, you cannot tell me anything. Let me tell you the things that you will enjoy from it. Compliance, because immediately you say, your children would have run and done it. Congratulations, authoritarian, military. Your children are very compliant. When they see you, and you know it's bragging rights, especially, on social media, people are like, my child can never try that. Sorry, General. My child can never try that rubbish with me. Your child is trying rubbishes. Many, many rubbishes. It's just that you are oblivious to it. Reason, your child has recognized that your presence and your existence is a punisher, but your child has not learned replacement behavior. Immediately you remove the punisher, then the child's behavior will come out fully. So you have just taught your child to act and behave a certain way around you. You have not taught your child one single replacement behavior. Meanwhile, on Twitter, they're like, hey, all these people that try that, my child can never try it with me. Congratulations, I guess, on being the most feared in the whole world. I mean, those may be your core values, and so I don't get to be judgy, even though I know I sound judgy, and I need to reset right now. But your lived values, are they aligned with your core values? Is your value being an authoritarian? Then it will make sense. That's not one of my values, so it doesn't make sense to me. All right, an outlet for your frustration, and then knowing that you're not sparing the rod, because look, I'm not even going to go into that sparing the rod conversation. Can you guys think of any more benefits of using physical punishment? Put it in the chat so we can move on. Gratification, the parent feels, yes, because it's power and control is heady. You hit and somebody's shaking, right? Passing the generational back. Okay, yeah. Thank you, guys. Outlet for parental anger. Yeah, that's the benefit it serves. Because when your co-worker or your peer or somebody outside pisses you off, you don't transfer that aggression to them, but it's the children. Teaching violence, yes. Quick response. Physically preparing kids for unforeseen battles. Please, what unforeseen battles are you preparing your kid for, that when they see you, they're already they are showing symptoms of PTSD? All right, let's move on. So to be clear, as we wrap up this part, you get to decide, not me. Remember, you are the expert on your child. So take a moment and visualize the child that you want, your child on their 18th birthday. Have they become the adult you dreamed they will be? Is your child able to self-regulate and make informed choices from years of practice? Or are they only controlled by fear, the fear of what their parents will do to them? Now think about yourself. Are you able to self-regulate? They beat me and I turned out okay. Yeah, it's one thing now, you're calling everybody's mother a bastard on the Twitter streets. Yet they beat me and I turned out okay. Are you able to self-regulate? What did getting punished teach you? When you left the presence or the environment of the person who was punishing you, what did you do, right? What do you want to teach your child? Are you willing to unlearn and relearn? Those are some of the questions. So what are my options? That's what parents ask. Okay, I've heard. Okay, oh, let us hear what Coach Chi. I don't want to beat them anymore. Should I then let my child run wild? Isn't that an adverse effect too? How do I reason with a toddler? Who has time to be explaining every day? Stubborn. Children, have you met children? Hey, God. Right? So the question now becomes, okay, we have heard, we have agreed. What should I do? I want to establish something before we go to that part. That idea of different parenting styles with the authoritarian Nigerian style of my word is the law, we don't have conversations, on one extreme, which is high on control and low on feelings and compassion and empathy. On the other end is permissive parenting, which is low in discipline, right? And very high in allowing the child to do what they want. So when you hear a typical Nigerian parent or a typical African parent or a parent who's big on using physical punishment, when they hear, I better beat my child so that their life doesn't get ruined, they're thinking that the opposite is just allowing the child to do anything. That's why I've stopped engaging in those conversations on Twitter, because it's almost as if you're saying it's either beating or nothing, right? But that's not the point. The point is we want to be big on discipline. For example, in my house, discipline is a big deal. And what discipline looks like is different for different people, but discipline to us per our family meeting and our core values is being able to regulate and choose your response, right? So discipline is a big, my children do not run wild. The fact that I'm not putting my hands on them does not mean that I'm okaying inappropriate behavior, right? I'm just not harming them because I'm trying to correct behavior. Is that clear? So we're not saying that children are allowed to run amok. We don't do that here. We don't. I'm still a Nigerian parent. It's just that I'm not going to use my hand, my own same hand. These children that I prayed and begged God for, although after the two I prayed and begged for, then I got a surprised one. So I got a surprise one as well. But these children that I claim to love, I'm not going to use my own hand to, tear them apart. No, I will correct their behavior, right? Without ruining them, not go from not hitting to doing nothing. So choosing non-violence is not the same as doing nothing and allowing inappropriate behavior to continue. Let's be clear, okay? All right, so we are going to the how now. So remember, your questions, we're going to answer everything as much as possible. How much time do we have left? We are exactly an hour in. Great. Remember operant conditioning. Learn this. There's an antecedent, what happened prior to the behavior occurring. There's behavior, what the person actually did. Then there's consequence, what happened right after. Antecedent, in the case of, remember my daughter in pre-K 4, antecedent was math, a math worksheet. Behavior was flinging the chair so that she could get the consequence of them sending her to the principal's office. So if you want to understand how to modify or correct behavior, you have to ask yourself, what happened prior to this behavior occurring, so that you can understand the function, right? Remember, we talked about consequences. It is what proximately follows. So the behavior happens, then the consequence happens. If you change the consequence that follows the behavior will change. If you try me and I change it for you, you are less likely to try me next time. I have punished your behavior, reducing the future likelihood of occurrence of it. So the question is, do you want to see more of this behavior? If the answer is no, then you punish the behavior, right? Do you want to see more of this behavior? Then you reward it. I'm going to teach you one magic trick now that will change the game for you as a parent. Are you ready? If you're ready, say yes in the comments while I take my drink of water. See, I love you guys. You're a great team, even though I can't see you right now, but I can feel your energy. Keep it coming. Thank you. See, all these yeses, I find them really reinforcing. So it's increasing the rate of response of my behavior, right? Good. The thing about behavior, when you think about appropriate behavior and inappropriate behavior, is that they are inversely correlated. As one goes up, that is appropriate behavior, the other goes down, which is inappropriate behavior, right? Let me give you an example. When my kids were younger, they used to bicker a lot. I mean, they still bicker now, but not as much as they used to do when they were little. And it will be around maybe things like watching TV and not wanting to take turns. And I was frustrated. So one day I said to them, I said, okay, guys, you know what's going to happen? If you guys argue and you refuse to take turns and it degenerates in me having to leave my room to come here to talk to you guys, I'm going to turn the TV off. So the inappropriate behavior in that instance was bickering, right? My first job when I see a behavior I don't want anymore is to name it. Then my next job is to ask myself, what is the positive opposite of that behavior that I now want to see? So what do you think the positive opposite of the bickering and the fighting for me would have been in that context? Because I was sick and tired of the shouting. And then I will come and shout and say, you people, you shout too much. I hate it. Somebody cannot rest in this house. And then I'll be like, and see, can you calm down? Why always shouting? Why? Thank you. I love all these responses. Agreeing to a schedule, sharing and taking turns, peace and quiet, negotiating, fairness, sharing. Thank you. Patience and cooperation. So as you can see, what you don't like exists. But if you can't say the name of what you like, how do you want to teach it? Because sometimes we look at kids and we say, stop doing that rubbish. Please, what does that mean? What does stop doing that rubbish mean? So for example, I was telling one parent whose kid used to run off that when a child tends to take off, because I mean, in that context, it was autism, and those are some of the behaviors that occur. There's a lot of escape with, kids who are on the spectrum. So context, when a kid is taking off or engaging in inappropriate behavior, you want to give a very clear one-word command that redirects and corrects that behavior. The typical parent response is to say, stop running, I'm tired of this, your rubbish, are you trying to die? We need to stop doing that. Reason, we haven't given the child a very clear direction. So if a child is running, you identify the positive opposite, which is what you want them to do. So you say, walk. A very clear instruction that resets this child's brain who doesn't have the prefrontal cortex that you have. Stop that. Somebody said, so it's not enough to say stop that. What is the opposite of the positive opposite? That is what you want to see. That's what you need to say. So for example, if somebody is touching me appropriately, I say, keep your hands to yourself. It's a very clear direction. So I don't say stop touching. A clear positive opposite. Keep your hands to yourself, right? Walk. Quiet voice, please. If you, that you are the adult, cannot identify, let me tell you one funny story. My husband, when we first started learning this behavioral science thing, because we both come from like very traditional, like parents, and we struggled a lot with, adapting it, but it aligned with our core values, right? So one day they were running amok upstairs in the media room, and he was like, I just need you children to just be good children. Can't you even just be good? And I was like, what's the positive opposite of the behavior? He said, oh, I don't know. He said, let them just be good. I said, okay, what is good? He said they should just sit down quietly and put their hands in their laps. And as he said it, we both burst out laughing because it was unrealistic. Like, so in defining the positive opposite, it will let you yourself know that this my expectation, as in our children designed. Then he himself now said, if these children just sit down and they put their hands in the lap the whole day, we'll be worried. So do we have an idea of what we want to tell them to do? So we said, guys, can you play quietly, please? And we heard, okay, mommy. And then they count down, even though they then went and started jumping up and down again. But you get the general idea. So instead of shouting, you people play too much, you shout too much, you identify the positive opposite and name it. So the positive opposite of bickering and not taking turns was sharing and taking turns. So we told them, when you share and take turns, you can have more screen time, right? When you bicker, you have less screen time. Can you see what I meant by inversely correlated? As bickering and fighting go down, getting along and taking turns will go up. What happens is that it is the negative or the inappropriate behavior that gets our attention the most. The magic I want to teach you is to focus on the positive one that you want to see more of, because that's what you want to teach, because that's your job as a parent. So instead of me to be popping off that my children don't take turns, my children don't have turn taking in their repertoire. They need to learn it. My responsibility is to teach turn taking by using the science of behavior, which is removing the preferred item so that turn taking can increase. So instead of using all my energy to punish bickering and fighting, I think of the positive opposite and I teach it and reward it. So when they take turns, I'm like, wow, good job. You guys are really taking turns now. I love to see it. This is what I like. You guys get extra 30 minutes of screen time. I like the question about, does it apply to adult relationships? The principle, the science is the science. It's just that how it will apply to each situation will be different. That's why I'm focusing on teaching you the science, and I'm trying to use different examples. So let's use an adult example. If your staff keep coming late, you can shout from today to tomorrow. Let me tell you an intervention that I did for somebody's company. You want people to come early? Identify the positive opposite of coming late, which is arrive early, right? The operational definition of that word in behavioral science is I can't even remember. I think tardiness. What's the opposite of tardiness? But we found the operational definition, right? You reward arriving on time. Tardiness will reduce. Thank you, punctuality. So if the problem is they're always coming late, my staff, they're always coming late. I'm like, I understand your frustration. I'm sorry you feel frustrated. We work through all of that. Then we are now like, what is the practical thing that we can implement? First thing is to identify the positive opposite. Thank you guys, punctuality. How do you teach punctuality? Positive reinforcement. Behavior you reinforce, you increase. And positive reinforcement works more than negative. Reinforcement works more than punishment in behavior modification. So we identify the target and we defined it. Anybody that arrives at 5 minutes to 8 o'clock is on time. If you have 0 tardies in the month, you get a gift card. There were like things that they could get that were like not really that big of a deal. People started to count their tardies by themselves because they now made it a goal for themselves. So that's an adult, explanation. I hope that helps because somebody was asking about adults. So what you give energy to grows. I want us to switch our brain from this idea of punishment to I want to teach appropriate behavior. How can I get appropriate behavior to increase? That is my role as a parent, because there are some behaviors that are even difficult to punish. Let me look at the questions. What if there's a power dynamic? If you are the child wanting to do this to your parents, when there's a power dynamic, definitely the system changes, right? So it may not work exactly. Why this science works very, very well for children is because their reinforcers belong to you. You have what we call in my work instructional control. So for example, screen time is a big reinforcer in my house. The iPad and the Chromebooks, they live in this room that I'm in. So you get access to screen time. I mean, my oldest is taller than me, but he doesn't have unlimited access to screen time because you earn it. So for example, what I mean, for example, is that before you turn on the TV, you need to have completed your chores. Or else when I come and the chores are uncompleted, you lose screen time because I'm like, oh, wow, dude, what's going on in that sink? I mean, come on, you know better. When you chose not to do your chore before screen time, you chose to lose screen time access. And it's like, oh, why do I keep doing this to myself? I'm like, when you know better, you do better. Bye, we keep it moving, right? So for children, it's easy. But for an adult, I don't have the other adult reinforcers with me. So that's kind of like a different dynamic. But behavior that you reward will increase. So if you keep doing something nice for me and I give you positive reinforcement, you are more likely to do it often. Very valid. I read about a landlord that rewards early payments with a 5% discount. That's it. So tenants will rush to pay because they want that 5% discount. In my office, you are debited 1K from your salary every time you are late. I love it. That's literally a behavior intervention. So thank you. In our culture, we tend to use punitive measures. That's a trauma response. You want to unlearn that and make your home a place of love and enjoyment. Not every time punish, punish, punish. Like, okay, let me stay on track. what we give energy to grows, right? So it's inappropriate behavior growing because we are giving it all the attention. What will happen if we focus on positive behaviors and reinforce them, right? So the side effects of using reinforcements, there's a positive environment. People learn when they're in a positive environment. When they're afraid, they don't do a lot of learning. So learning actually occurs. Then the child can learn to self-regulate. My 13-year-old is learning to self-regulate by themselves, not just because when I come, they're afraid. Then the child learns how to use their upstairs brain. That's how children develop executive functioning, by being able to think through things by themselves. Okay, this is a lot of material, guys. All right, so I have so much going on this page. Let me see if I can zoom in on one thing at a time. I put all these different examples because I thought I could use them to explain practical things that were practical interventions that we're using. And I kind of put all of them at the end. So sorry that I didn't organize it better. Let me start with this. Can you guys see the treasure box? So treasure box is, we still have that box. I'm looking to donate it. So if you're in the Houston area and you're looking for a treasure box, because this photo is about 6 or so years old, or maybe like 5 years old, and we've outgrown treasure box. If you have younger kids, treasure box is very helpful because kids are very visual. So I wish I could do that whole training in this class, but what I have found to be helpful, which I did the last time that I did this training, was that people had so many questions because their needs were unique. So what I encouraged them to do was, we got together all the people who had toddlers, right? And we did a class for toddlers that was very practical with the implementation and answering questions. Then people who had teenagers, then people who were looking for things in their relationship, like how to use the science of behavior in their relationship. I'm totally open to doing that. If you guys would like that, just let me know. But let me explain these images, then we can go straight to to all of your questions and all of that. So that treasure box, I don't know if you can see the wall behind them. The wall behind them is this one that says, when your mom is a behavior analyst, right? So they would earn points. And so you can see how I put positive reinforcement at the top. So you earn points for helping others. All those things that they earn points for, those are the things that go with our core values, right? Helping others, being kind, doing as you are told, growing your brain. My children didn't used to like to bath. So bathing before 8, right? So they would earn points for those. Then they will lose points for hurting others, for being mean, for non-compliance. That's not doing as you are told after 3 warnings. So they will earn all of the points. Then on Friday, if you had up to however many points, then you could get something from treasure box. And treasure box is easy to implement. You don't have to use, we actually found a real treasure box. That's why we have it. You can use any empty carton in your house. The things in treasure box don't have to be expensive. And that part is important. Just so we'll go to the dollar store at the beginning of the month. Do I hear you people calling children tyrants? I'm about to come for you. Who are the tyrants? Who? I was kidding if that wasn't clear. So we buy all kinds of, like, we go to the dollar store, right? And then just buy whatever is in the dollar store and we put it in the treasure box. And these children are working hard from Sunday to Friday just so that they can get something in treasure box at the end of the week. So that's one practical implementation of using positive reinforcement. So you just make, the kids are really good with visuals, right? What else? The other one, we then graduated. When they grew older, we then painted over that and we bought a whiteboard. We called it a brag board. And that's something you can have in your house. You can use it in your office. A brag board is, sorry, I'm having a hard time following the, there's a lot of action in the chats and I'm having a hard time following it. So the brag board The rule we made for this brag board is that you're not allowed to write for yourself. You don't brag on yourself. Someone else has to brag on you. So everybody started behaving themselves so others could catch them being good. So you hear my youngest David say something like, Alexis, do you need help with the dishes? And she'll be like, or she'll be like, oh yeah, sure. Then he'll be like, I know I can't tell you to write a brag for me, but I'm really being helpful. So I now saw them competing, like with being good. So you can use brags. Brags are really very helpful. What else? This solving cycle is for older kids when you're trying to teach them how to self-regulate. If you are yelling and beating them, you can't really use this one well because you need to teach them to calm down, identify the problem. The 5-to-1 ratio is the example about how many positive comments balance out negative comments. One negative comment to your child is balanced by 5 positive comments. So what you want to do is catch them being good more and focus your energy on, right? Then the feedback sandwich. If you want to give your child feedback about their behavior, find something that they're doing right. And this is usually hard for parents because parents are like, I said the child is doing rubbish. You say I should find something that they're doing right. Sometimes I give my oldest, who I used to have a hard time finding positive reinforcement for, I say, I see that you are not giving up, right? He's not getting it right, but he's not giving up. So I'm like, oh, wow, you're really focusing, aren't you? And because they've heard you say something positive, they're more likely to, you're more likely to get a good outcome from them. I can't find my Prezi controls, guys. And I don't know what to do. And I need to move this screen. I'm not sure what to do. And I'm trying to use my words to talk through my feelings so I don't start getting anxious. I'm going to pause the recording, I guess. And then I hit escape and then try to get the Prezi back, okay? All right, I didn't keep track of all of the comments in the chat, but this is where we do question and answer, right? And so I'm looking at the time and we're at 1:37. Even though I planned for this class to be an hour, 30 minutes long, I figured that we need a little bit extra time to do questions and answers. So that's what we're going to do now. So let's use the Q&A function. I'm going to quickly review the chat. Oh, there's a lot of LOLs there. I'm sorry. If you put a question here and I didn't see it, please put it in the Q&A. Let's use that, right? Hands are for helping. I'm sorry, guys. I lost track. Should I just abandon this chat and go straight to the whatchamacallit, to the Q&A, right? And I see people raising their hands. All right. Genuinely asking, do all toddlers below 5 have issues listening and following instruction? They don't have their prefrontal cortex. What I mean is that literally children don't have sense, as in a very literal sense, in very literal interpretation of the word. The person who teaches them to have sense is you. As in, I'm the one that is supposed to teach my children to have sense. But you know what the gag is? Me too, my prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. So you have a case of the blind leading the blind, because I don't know how to calm myself down when I'm agitated. And it is now my job to teach 3 children how to calm themselves down. I have to first go and learn how to calm my own self down. So you are right. I'm not making excuses for children. I'm saying that their brain is not fully developed, as in they don't have bits, as in they are missing real estate. The word that is coming to my mind is vacuous. Is that the right way to say it? That there's space there. So when you are looking at them and they're acting out, just be looking and be thinking, wow, wow, wow. My work is very many, because I have to put it brick upon brick to literally help them build the sense. That is the job of the parent. your prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until you're well into your late 20s, right? So that's why it makes it hard to parent teens, because they have an adult body and they think that they have now become adults, but their choices don't reflect the choices of somebody that has sense. I remember one time I was asking my son, I said, what were you thinking? And he said, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't. I said, it shows. It shows. All right. So they are missing real estate. It is our job they have a skills deficit. It's like language. They can't speak that language because they don't know it. It is my responsibility to teach them. The way I could teach them or employ somebody to teach them to write or send them to school to go learn it. They learn to read, write, and all those things. They can learn how to regulate their behavior. And because children learn the most by modeling, the way they learn to regulate their behavior is from what I model to them. So who is the first person that has to learn emotional self-regulation? The parent. You have to learn it, okay? And I teach it. I created a class for it. It's a really, really solid class, and you can take it. I have a link on my website that you can take it. So we'll get there in a bit. So I hope that answered your questions. How do we retrace with a child you already spank? The day you wake up is your morning. The day you say, today, I want to do better, then you start to learn how to do better, and then you improve, right? So if you decide that, you know what, I found out that this thing I'm doing, it's just like if you have been, think about in America, every 2 business days, they've recalled one medication. They say, if you bought meat from Kroger, return it till we found something in it. If you are doing something, you will recall. Omolo, I said, this work is hard. Let me just send the children to you for the next 10 years. First of all, you're assuming that I'm even getting it right 100% of the time with my own. I don't know what I did to lie by omission or commission that I get it right all the time. But look, even me, I'm learning the work. We're always going to be learning it. Always. It's just that we have that commitment that we are going to do better because we are thinking about our children's future and we are matching our behavior with our values. So how do you retrace with a child you already spanked? You make the decision that not anymore, right? My hands are for hurting, my hands are for helping, and not for learning. And you are, like, I guess, humble enough to even admit it to yourself, because haven't you heard me say it? I used to be a spanker, very fast, with backhand in the, and my oldest, he had a very smooth this thing in the back of his head. Psh, oh my God. Very, very, but my hands are for helping, not for hurting. If I can learn it, anyone else can. All right, what else? What are examples of physical punishment? I used to think hitting was also part of physical punishment. Physical punishment, when I use it within the context of this class, is putting our hands on others. I know people try to say there's a difference between a small spank and a whooping. My hands are for helping, not for hurting, point blank, period. One of my core values is non-violence, which means I don't put my hand on anybody. I struggle with my words. I need to take my emotional self-regulation class. You need it. We all do, but we have to learn to self-regulate, right? We have to learn to if you learn self-regulation, because think about it like this. My job is to model to my children what appropriate behavior looks like. If I cannot behave the behavior, I cannot model it. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like, for example, none of my children speak French because me, I don't speak French. If I used to speak French in this house now, they would have known French, right? But they speak the language I speak because that's what I modeled to them. So a lot of the behaviors that we are seeing is what we modeled. So if we want to unmodel it, is it them that we want to teach or us ourselves first? Then we will start to model what is appropriate. How do we apply this to much older children? My teen sister dresses so scandalously. Is there a way I can discourage her? This sounds like because, sometimes we'll have like very detailed one-on-one session type of questions. And you guys, this is my day job, right? So go to my website, schedule a session, pay me your money, and I will teach you. It's going to be very difficult to address everybody's things in details. Examples of physical punishment. So just putting our hands on other people or putting tools or instruments on other people. You can punish behavior without hitting a child. My favorite punishment, let me tell you my rules for using positive punishment. It has to be constructive, and it has to add value, and it has to have zero stress for me. So for example, the day my child decided that he wanted to act out in school, my oldest, and he said that we should come and carry him because him and one boy, they were feeling like they were wrestlers. So they said the school rule that he has to stay at home for 2 days, but he must still complete his work. And I looked at him and said, if I want this behavior to increase, I reward it. If I want it to reduce, I punish it. Staying at home is rewarding for any child. And I had learned it from my younger child. So we have extra in our house. We don't really throw our old toothbrushes away when we switch them every other month. We keep it. You see that toothbrush? You guys, you know what is called grout. Grout, that space between tiles. Oh, I gave him the toothbrush. Shebi, you say you don't like learning in school and you want to stay at home. Yeah, somebody said they saw it on Twitter. I even posted it that you people should come and see your favorite boy. He said he want to be a wrestler. He want to be learning from home. At first, he was frowning as he was watching. After, when I passed again, I saw him singing to himself. He was there for hours. And Shebi, you are the one that said you don't want to go to school, right? I have to make sure that behavior reduces. So to be clear, and this is something I don't think I mentioned already, we don't punish children, we punish behavior. I don't know about you, but if you don't make the distinction between your child and their behavior, then you can end up calling your child a bad kid. Your child is not a bad kid, not this precious child that you gave birth to, that you have been spending your life and energy and money on, that you are in this class. Is it that you don't have anything to do with your Saturday? You love your kids. You don't have bad kids. The same way I said there are no bad parents. Me, personally, I don't believe that they are bad kids. The kids make bad choices. Yes, just like adults do. So you are punishing the behavior, not punishing the child. Guys, the back of my neck hurts. So there was one other time, my two younger ones, this was like 6 or so years ago, they were really tiny that time. They were fighting. I said, So I brought paper. And that time they needed to practice their handwriting. I said, handwriting practice, start writing. I will keep my hands to myself. My hands are for hurting or helping. Oh yeah, start repeating it. Who are you going to stress? Me? No. When you use punishment well, you transfer the stress to the person who chose the consequence when they chose I have to teach you guys that one, but I can teach it in a class that is related to the behavior. So you transfer, let me see, how do I explain it? I am not the punisher. Does that make sense? The consequence is the punisher. Do you understand what I mean? I am not the punisher. The consequence that immediately follows the behavior is what makes it reduce, not me. Does that make sense? So you will teach your children. I'll teach you something. If you take my class, I'll set up the classes and I'll let you guys take it because we have to wrap up now. Excuse me. When you teach a child that when they make a choice, they've chosen their consequence. They then recognize, that's what parenting is teaching. Discipline is from discipling, right? And for people who are Christians and think within the context of the Bible and Jesus. I was telling a client the other day who says the Bible says that we have to beat our children. I said, show me where Jesus was beating the disciples. They were literally the people that were assigned to him for him to disciple. Did you see how he was teaching? Teaching is filling skill deficit. I don't know where we got discipline and associated it with pain. Discipline is loving guidance in the right direction. Does that make sense? So when I'm correcting my children's behavior, it is not from a place of, in fact, when you're in a place of, go and take the emotional, mastering your emotions course, you calm down. You discipline from a place of calmness because you want good outcomes for your child. Our children are not dumping grounds for the stressors of our life. They are not responsible for your misfortune. Okay, let's move on. What is the opposite of stop biting your nails? Take your hands out of your mouth. I mean, that looks really simple to me. On naming behaviors you want to see, let me describe something that happened today. I was in the clinic with my 18-month-old. He kept running around. I tried to say, stop, didn't work. Tried distracting him with Coco Melon. Now he was tired because we're in the clinic. If he was home, other things would have taken up his time, but I was frustrated. What could I have done to get him to stop running and listening to me? Children run. They are supposed to run. If your child was not running, we'll be carrying him to hospital up and down. Why is my child not running? So he needs to have an appropriate outlet for his energy. But we live in a real world and that's not always possible. So if you are going out with a kid, you need to make a plan for their activities. We can't leave it blank, right? So we make a plan that what is it that will keep this kid occupied while we are, and I know that, look, sometimes we talk as if our head is in the clouds and we're not using practical examples. But my point being that we need to make an arrangement for what that child is going to do with their energy because he's supposed to be running, as in, that's his work. So how do we tire him out? How do we work expending his energy into? And then what then happens is that I, as a parent, feel frustrated because of my child's behavior. My child is not frustrating me. My frustration belongs to me. So I can look at myself and use the tools in mastering my emotions to say, I feel frustrated. Right? What do I want to do about my frustration? We'll promptly ignore instructions. Have you met children? In fact, it's not, sometimes I doubt that maybe their ears are working. We need practical classes for that. Okay. Guys, I apologize, I'm tired. Please, will the replay be shared? Absolutely. Anytime I teach a free class, I put it on YouTube. I don't put my paid classes on YouTube. I sell my paid classes. I sell the replays after, but you can watch the free class on YouTube. How can I help my HL be more organized? Like he forgets things. Are you describing my son? Not putting his things like shoes, socks, just generally disorganized. He may have other things going on. So you decide what the appropriate behavior is, and then you reward that to replace the being disorganized. Let me give you an example. One time we were, what were we doing? My kids would come back from school and I would talk about, put your bag in this way, remove your bag from that place. One thing. And one day as they came in, I just noticed one bag on the floor and I was about to, please remember, put your question inside the Q&A. I'm not following the chat. As I came in, I noticed that two people put their bags up. One person didn't put their bag up and I was about to have energy for inappropriate behavior. So I was about to yell and I was like, my feelings belong to me. My choices are mine. I'm responsible for my response. And I looked at the two people who did the right thing and I realized that I wasn't paying attention to appropriate behavior. So I was like, wow, guys, I like the fact that you guys have been paying attention to following directions. Go and bring treasure box for the two of you that did the right thing. I did not talk to the person who did the wrong thing. But guess what he immediately did? He now ran and carried the bag. I went to hang it and said, okay, I put my bag up now. Can I have treasure box? And I was like, oh, sweetie, but you didn't do it when you came in. That's what I'm rewarding the others for. Do you want to try tomorrow? And I was like, oh, okay, I'll try tomorrow. And we kept it moving. Did I have to tell him to put the bag up tomorrow? Just reduce your own stress. Ask yourself the behavior that you want to see increase and the one you want to see reduce. Then gather all your energy for the appropriate behavior. The appropriate behavior will increase. I'll move on. How do you manage a situation where one parent wants to stop hitting, but that's a common problem in my work? You guys, I'm a marriage and family therapist. I recommend couples therapy for that one. It happens a lot in my work because think about it. Different upbringings, different approaches. It's very unlikely that you will always be 100% on the same page about parenting. And I wish I could tell you there was a simple answer, but there isn't. I mean, it's hard. Couples therapy, I offer that. So maybe you want to schedule a session for you guys. Don't you think this method of rewarding good behavior raises children who expect the world to be good? That's a good question. I say this because yes, good behavior is rewarded in general, but how do they handle bad behavior in the workplace that is rewarded all the time? How do they deal with frustration? This is a legitimate concern that people have about children. In fact, in my last class, somebody said, so when we do this positive reinforcement up to a stage, when will we stop? I was like, you are planning on stopping this thing that is going to make your house nice and warm. It's going to become a habit. But I want you to think of yourself as an individual, right? If you work in an environment that is positive, where your effort is acknowledged, your mistakes are not, made into this horrible thing, and somebody asks you, the CEO of your organization, that when are you going to stop doing this thing that you are doing that is increasing the morale of your employees? What would you say to somebody like that who says this positive thing that you are doing, isn't it going to make people soft? Can you be tired of too much positivity? Somebody that speaks to you like somebody that has sense, that when you make a mistake, they say, but that's unlike you. I wonder what must have been going on that made you do that. And talks to you like somebody that has sense. Because remember, I told you, picture the 18-year-old version of your child. I want you to think about the adult version that you are putting the building blocks small by small today. As in, does using physical punishment and harshness, I mean, the world is already harsh, right? So, I mean, the same way I wouldn't think that a positive environment needs to stop because the world is harsh. I don't think I want to stop a positive environment for my children. I'm always using positive reinforcement, always catching them being good, because remember, behavior that you reward will increase. So, for example, my youngest, he's a really polite and kind boy. So the other day, there was somebody mentioned, we were out and about, and somebody said, your boy was so polite and he helped me. And I was like, wow, David. The way I stopped everything and started clapping for him, I could see my son's head visibly expand. There was a spring in his step. I was like, that's what I'm talking about. That behavior will increase because I want an adult that is polite and well-mannered, not the one that is saying, and so you shouldn't be polite. You see what I would do to him. What purpose does that serve? So where the environment is positive and you start to see that because they are copying you, you now see them being positive. You see the way they talk to each other. You see the way they talk to their friends. When they are struggling, you see the way they comfort each other because you have modeled it to them. So it's not a terminal thing or a short-term thing. It's a lifestyle, okay? How can I get the recording? I'll share the link after. What do you do when your toddler isn't listening? Toddlers don't listen. They don't have sense. You start to implement rewards for appropriate behavior. Toddlers need a whole thing. I have an old toddlers class that you can either pay to watch Or I can teach a new one where you can bring your real life questions and we'll address it. When I teach small groups, they're usually small, maxed at 25. So it'll be a group of people with similar things. So I'll create those classes and then you can sign up and attend. So we'll do toddler. The last time I think I did toddler teenagers, but shoot me an email and tell me the groups you like to see. I'll create them, you pay and you can attend them. Small groups are usually cheaper than one-on-one sessions. So find a bunch of you and your friends that have similar things going on. Get yourselves together. You can set up a group and I'll be happy to teach you. Okay. Can you speak a bit more about the brag board? The brag board is excellent. We used to have one at my old job. It's very simple. You put it there blank. You put, what's it called there? Chalk or whatever. The only thing for that brag board is to brag on each other. You are not allowed to brag on yourself, right? So everybody starts writing on the board what other people do for them. So it must be very specific. So somebody can come and say, like me, I'm always bragging on my husband because he stays making good choices. And because I like those good choices to increase, I'm using positive reinforcement. And I so much love it. So if he does something like for me, one thing that's very important to me is that people speak to me kindly, even when I'm not on my best behavior, right? So if I'm doing rubbish, and you talk to me like somebody that has sense, I'm more likely to behave like somebody that has sense. So if he says something like, I'm curious about why you are like being really short, is there something going on? Then I go and brag. I say, brag board, my lover for responding with kindness when I was being an ass. Then me too, I start doing better because it's reciprocal, right? Does that make sense? Right? That's okay. Will there be a replay? Absolutely. How does one deal with public hysterical tantrums? Tantruming class, that's what we need. Tantruming is a very specific niche thing that has a way it has to be addressed. You don't deal with toddlers the way you deal with adults. You use things like extinction, then you're prepared for an extinction burst. It's science, guys. I will teach you. We'll do a class. How does one deal with I answered that. I'm struggling with my 7-year-old. Please, who isn't struggling with their 7-year-old? Sorry, sis, I empathize with you. She didn't really have tantrums as a toddler, but they've been wild the past year. She knows what to do, but she said, I don't want to do it. There's something going on. Let's respond with curiosity. I wonder why, what's happening. Let me teach you guys a principle that's very important, but I know it's hard to implement. You see, the kids who need loving help the most are the toughest ones. And I know it's hard because our instinct is to be harsh on them, but that acting out is typically a cry for help, but it's difficult. It's difficult. Think about yourself at 7. That's one of the easiest things that helps me when I'm having a hard time with my kid. I think about myself at that age and the struggles that I had. And my biggest thing with my mom was I wished my mom would just listen. As in, I wish she would just even say, okay, baby, tell me your side. But she was always right about what happened. And she knew the reason for my behavior. And she had no idea. Your child is probably struggling. And I know it's hard, but see, it can be worked through. A cry for help is a cry for help. They don't have the words like us to ask for what they need. And I know it's complicated, but a person that you don't connect with, you cannot correct. Connection comes before correction. So you need to connect with that child first. And it's hard, I don't know how else to explain it, but she's not, when I don't know how to say it. As a parent, I can feel disrespected, but there's a difference between I feel disrespected and you disrespected me. There's a big difference. And if you can make that connection as a parent, you can separate your feeling to say, I feel disrespected, right? Then you address the disrespect or your feeling before saying, this child disrespect me, I'll beat rubbish and nonsense out of you. What was going on with that child probably has nothing to do with, I'm going to move on. How do we apply this to much older children? Okay, we talked about that already. How do you regulate aggression and calm yourself with the damaged cortex? You take that class. If you don't want to take the class, you can schedule a one-on-one with me. That's literally my day job. How do you deal with tantrums? We already covered that. I think somebody said something about older kids. So maybe we should do like 0 to 5. Then we should do maybe like 6 to 12. Then if you can hear me, or my darling assistants, please take notes so we'll know the classes to create. 0 to 5, 6 to 12, then we can do teens. How about that? I think that's a good, what do you guys think? My daughter and I currently moved to the States and we stay with my parents. My dad is always on my neck to teach her. Intergenerational households are difficult. This one is kind of tricky. We can walk through that in a one-on-one session because they're very unique concerns. How do I get my toddlers to listen to their grandparents? It's hard, my friend. Jumi, it's difficult. It's challenging. How do we teach them positive behavior without making them feel every behavior needs to be rewarded? There's something in my work called schedules of reinforcement. Let me quickly teach you that part. Guys, I'm tired and I'm hungry and sleepy. Let me teach you about differential reinforcement. So there's something called schedules of reinforcement, which when a behavior first occurs, if you reward it, like back to back to back to back, something is going to set in. It's called satiation, right? And in economics, they call that thing law of diminishing marginal utility. If you drink Coke, the first Coke, you get 9 out of 10 satisfaction. By the time you get to the 4th bottle of Coke, the satisfaction has reduced to 1, right? So how do you address it when it comes to reinforcing behavior? Think about when your child first learned to crawl, or when they first learned to walk, or when they first started talking. You will clap a lot and be like, ooh, when they took the first step. Please, after 1 week or 2 weeks of walking, are you still clapping? No. So you use a lot of reinforcement when it is a new behavior that you're trying to teach. Then you fade, which means that you reward on a variable schedule. So it's not every time, good job. Even the child will be looking at you like, and say, what's happening? Is this really necessary? So then you mix and vary. That's different types of reinforcers: tangible, treasure box, verbal praise. See if you have kids. Your biggest reinforcers are verbal praise and connection. You catch them being good. And let me tell you the difference between good child, good boy, versus good job. Your child is already a good child, so free the good boy. Specific action that you saw that you want to see more of. My youngest, if my youngest should wash plate for you, he will wash it, then you will come back and wash it again. Am I going to stop him from washing it? No, because that's escape and avoidance. If I say you did not wash it well, don't wash it again. I'm not falling for that. So he will wash it. And I'll be like, wow, I see you are really working hard, even though some of these dishes are still oily. He's doing something right, which is he's persisting, even though it's difficult. But I'm angry that he's wasting water. But my job is to teach and fill the knowledge gap, not beat him for not washing plates well. Because what does beating teach? Fear and anxiety, or to be afraid of me. So I reinforce what he's doing. Is it grit? Is it determination? Is it not giving up? So I reward that. And slowly but surely, he has become an expert dishwasher. So is it every behavior that I'll reward or every behavior that I'll punish? I think not. Okay. My 16-year-old doesn't like being checked on. He's studying for GCSEs and occasionally checking to see how the studying is going and what he's doing. When this happens, he wears a long face and catching an attitude. That's age appropriate because he's developing personal autonomy, right? He's developing personal autonomy, and he might feel disappointed that you don't trust him. That does checking on him mean you don't trust him? So you check in with him, especially children at that age. You want to be talking to them all the time. I see that you have a long face. Do you feel bothered by the fact that I'm checking on you? Why do you think I'm checking on you? You want me to, well, I'm worried that you're not going to follow through, right? So you can have a conversation about, especially at that age, you want to be able to, look, if you have a teen that you are not talking to with calm upstairs brain voice, it's going to be really hard, because being teens are already at that like really volatile age. So you want to take a deep breath and then connect. Check in with them. What's going on? I'm curious about your long face. Is there something else going on? Is there something I did that you don't like? Let's talk about it, you know? So we will connect. We can't use authoritarian parenting styles with teens, especially if we live abroad. It's not going to work, man. It's not going to work because they're exposed to people who treat them better, right? Uju said, I really appreciate how Gbemi shows us that all of this is not immediate and instant. Uju is right, it isn't. It takes time and work to build these skills, but the investment is worth it, especially because you're the one who needs to do the work first. People often come to me saying, can I bring my child for you to train them, or tell me what to do to make this child stop doing what they're doing? Then they feel disappointed when I say the person who has to learn is you, because you're the adult in the relationship, okay? How do you redo it with a 9-year-old that you have missed out so many of these things? She's used to shouting, and I started shouting at her siblings as well. The first thing that you give yourself, my anonymous attendee, is compassion. You did the best that you knew, but you have learned something new today. Then you can start to do better. Let me tell you something about children. Children want to see you. They want to see that you feel similar feelings to them. So if you're struggling, it's okay to tell your child that you're struggling. When I'm having a hard time, I tell my kids, I'm having a really, really difficult time. And I know that when I get stressed, I start to yell, and I really want to do better. I'm going to take a deep breath now and go to my room to go and lie down for a few minutes. Then I'll come back out and we can talk about this, because I don't want us yelling at each other. The way that changes the vibe. I'm not this authoritarian that's always coming at them with, we're learning it, you know, together. So it's okay to say to your kid, I'm having a really difficult time. Your kid develops empathy because they can see that you feel the same frustrations as them. Deshola said, rules without relationship leads to rebellion. Absolutely. Work on that relationship and early too. And it's never too late to start. Come to schedule a session and come. Let's do the work together. What question should I be asking when a child does something wrong? Because my 12-year-old is always saying no reason, and I wasn't thinking when I tried to understand. What's the function of the behavior? And should we always be asking questions if that approach isn't working? Yeah, let me use that opportunity to say, another thing about parenting is that you can't be, how would I say it, be sold to one way as the only way. If something you're doing isn't working, then that's time to regroup and say, what can I do differently, or what else can I try? Does that make sense? So no reason, and I wasn't thinking. Then we can try other things. Kids need structure. See, in all of these things that we are saying, none of it says that kids should be doing rubbish. They need structure. They need discipline. We just want to do it in a loving environment that takes away the aversiveness and harshness. Okay. How do you manage other people's responses to your child's tantrum? I like that. Often tantrums are people respond to our children's behavior with shame. They try to shame us and guilt us. And so we then have to deal with the feeling that we feel about other people's responses. And I mean, soon enough, we learn to ignore, because you're the one that knows what you're working through. I don't know if I answered that properly, but yeah, it's not unusual. There's a lot of shame and guilt around parenting, too much. I've heard food should not be used for punishment or reinforcement. Context. The food how would I put this? If you do cookie after broccoli, the example that I used, right? That's part of a normal meal as per you eat your meal, then you get your dessert, right? Okay, let me teach you the difference between reinforcement and bribery. That's another thing people usually have a problem with positive reinforcement. So a bribe is something that you give something that you give someone in advance of them doing what you want, right? A bribe isn't helpful. You don't bribe kids. A reinforcer or a reward is something that you give after the appropriate behavior has occurred. So if you were going to give that cookie anyway, you give it after the non-preferred. It's called, the principle is called first, then. Does that make sense? So you do this first. So it's like me when I was in grad school and I was studying, I would reward myself with, and I know I'm a dirty stinking liar, but just work with me. I will reward myself with 30 minutes of pressing phone. I'm a dirty stinking liar because that 30 minutes will turn to 2 hours. But I'll work on my paper for 30 minutes and reward myself with 30 minutes of pressing phone, right? Because I put the non-preferred before the preferred. So you are not bringing an item that wouldn't have been in the mix already, right? You are bringing something that would have already been given, but you make access to it contingent on them doing the one that they wouldn't have preferred to do. I don't know if that makes sense. I have to move on. Is face the wall effective? A timeout is effective if the function is not escape or avoidance. If face the wall gives them a few minutes to think about themselves and to reset. Let's think of it in terms of what's the function of the behavior and what does facing the wall do to address the function of the behavior. I hope that's helpful. What are some ways to curb lying? Lying is hard because lying is complicated. Because is it the person that is lying that you want to ask, why are they lying? Because they are going to give you a lying response. Lying is hard. But if you think about it as an adult, what makes you lie? Because you want to get out of trouble. So if I'm speeding and a police officer stops me and says, were you speeding? I mean, maybe you are better than me and you are very honest, but I'm going to say I wasn't speeding. So think about it. Why do we as adults lie? To get out of trouble. So for example, I usually tell my kids, I'm like, look, I'm going to be mad at you if I catch you in a lie than if you tell me what really happened. So I make it safer for them to be honest. And I'm still going to punish the behavior. There's still going to be a consequence, but does that make sense? Okay, guys, let's wrap up. I love you, but I'm tired. My daughter and I, okay, we're ready. How to stop thumb sucking. Automatic behaviors are the hardest to stop because it doesn't have a reason. The behavior in and of itself is soothing, right? So biting nails, some people is shaking legs, some people it is touching themselves. It's difficult. It's the way to stop it is to make it not pleasurable again. That's why all those interventions like putting something bitter on the hand, if you can remove the pleasure, which is very difficult. So blocking, if they're there, you push the hand away, or you bakamu, or how do you say bakamu in English? You accept your fate. Thumb sucking is tricky, but we can design a behavior intervention. Do I offer counseling sessions? Yes, I'm a therapist. That's what I do, and I'm virtual. So yeah, what does effective punishment for a special needs is? A Zoom user with the special needs question, shoot me an email. I did a class for children with special needs. I will give you that class for free. Guys, I'm not giving anything. This whole session that I've done that is for free is because of, I mean, I was just impulsive that day. I don't work for free. I have student loans that are still paid. Ordinary to do this webinar, Zoom charged me money to do an upgrade because I wanted to get a whole bunch of people together. So guys, don't ask me to give you stuff for free, but you see that special needs toddler, shoot me an email. If you have a special needs kid in this group, or you know somebody that knows somebody that has a special needs kid, I already taught the class. I will give it to you. Okay, so shoot me an email. How do you deal with tantrums? You have to take the tantrum in class. So you either, so you know what we've decided to break into groups, right? The class that I've already taught that existed, if you want to buy that one, you can go ahead and buy it. If you want to then join a new one that we will set up, then we can join a new one that will set up. We'll decide on that. Let me just finish. Guys, you have to pay me money. Look, I started going to school in 2012, got a bachelor's degree in behavioral science. My mates were taking vacations and everything. I was paying students loan. I only just graduated in 2020, about just a little over a year ago. And the work is a lot. Do your classes also help permissive parents? While I don't hate her, I do feel like I don't have alternatives for inappropriate behaviors, so I let it slide. Take the class that will be for her age. So we will address very practical things in that. Hi, and thanks for all you shared. Please, how else do we tackle disciplinary measures when you've tried it all? Let me give you the example that I usually give people. I had acne, right? Last year, 2 years ago, and it was really bad. So I went to my primary care doctor. He gave me something. It didn't work. Then I thought it was my birth control. So I then went to my gynecologist, took out my birth control, put it back. It still didn't work. Then I went to a dermatologist. Then they put me on some medications. Those didn't work. Then they put me on Accutane, and it worked. You keep trying until you find the one that works, because our needs are different. Imagine if I said, nothing is working. You'll find the specialist that will, yeah. So what else? Hi, and thanks for all you shared. Okay, no, we answered that. How do I get my toddlers don't listen? They don't usually hear words. So you take the toddlers class. Hi, David. I'm still in my session. Bye, David. I'm sitting down there for an hour and a half. Yeah, and you were like, why is it taking so long?
No, not for Uncle G. I was afterwards I had started playing the game.
David, I'm working. I love you, bye-bye. All right. How do you stop a 2-year-old from crying at the drop? You have to take a toddler's tantrum class. Please, what is your YouTube page? Bemi Adekoya. There's a link on my website. My website is untangledtogether.com. My daughter doesn't like to learn, take correction. Is your daughter me? I don't like to learn, take correction, or listen consistently. You can shape any behavior. You reward the one that you want to see more of, and you punish the one that you... Thank you, David. David brought me pancakes because I look hungry.
I made the food for you, and it's been sitting there ever since you left.
Alexis made it for me.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I promise I'm going to finish my work, then I'm going to eat. Okay. Thank you, my darling. Close my door, please. The function of the behavior is attention. What does effective punishment for it? Why do I feel like I'm going back? I've answered. Do I offer coaching to adult kids dealing with drug addiction but won't go to rehab? Addiction is a specialty on its own, and I usually recommend in-person treatment for addiction. Addiction is complex because addiction rewires your brain. Addiction is too complex for virtual sessions. Rehab, treatment program will be my recommendation. 3-year-old Paul is drinking water on the floor. He is having a good time. Is it enough to ignore it and start a bit of attention? Jumoke, that is the intervention called extinction. It's also called planned ignoring. He's looking at it and laughing, and he's looking for a reaction from you. You don't give attention to that behavior. The same way you don't feed the trolls, right? You turn around and you walk away. If it's behavior that is unsafe that you need to address, make eye contact, give a one-word direction, remove that child from danger and keep it moving. The child will soon learn that they're not going to be able to get a rise out of you from their inappropriate behavior. Then when they're being appropriate, you look at them and you reward them for being appropriate. Toddlers are special because they don't know the difference between good attention and bad attention. They just want you to stop everything you are doing and to just be looking at them. That's the challenge that toddlers have. But we have to react and jump to everything. How to stop my 3-year-old from refusing to bath at night. I am 42 years old. I don't like bathing at night. Can you people free the 3-year-olds? It's not everybody that likes bathing. You people should free the kids, I beg. Free the babies. You like bathing. The reason you like bathing is because you know the social consequences of not bathing. It's not because you like to bath, or maybe they used to beat you because you didn't used to bath. Children don't like bathing. It's normal. Oh, okay, free them. If you allow them to watch CoComelon in the evening, put CoComelon after bathing. Say, you want to watch CoComelon? Great. Then let's bath. Then we watch CoComelon. You put the... My people, my 2-year-old hates washing her hair. I'm 42 years old. I hate washing my hair. Okay, you people should say another one. Who is going to advocate for these children? Why will a 2-year-old like washing their hair? How? You people, I'm going to call CPS for you and these children because I don't know what they did for you. Who is going to defend them now? All right, guys, I finished doing the Q&A. I love you, but I gotta go. I saw some people raise their hand. I apologize that I couldn't get to that. Let's talk about what we're doing when we leave here. Classes. My time is what, if you looked on my website, you see that my initial exploratory session starts at $100. That's what my time is worth. Because what you're paying me for is to synthesize years and years of learning, to reduce all the work that you would have had to do and make it applicable to you personally for you, right? So groups are a good deal because you can then get a bunch of people together, right, who have a similar thing going on and address it. So I'll do my groups for $25 a pop, right? But we will cap attendance at 25 people. So what that means is that once 25 people have reached, right, then we can do another one for another 25 people. The challenge that we're going to have, though, is that I'm booked, I'm busy. So I don't have that much availability. And I don't really like working on Saturday. But these groups are great for Saturdays. So what we can do is that as the day hot, let's do it in December, right? Because November is already gone and I'm going on vacation tomorrow. So there's no next Saturday work, it's Thanksgiving. So starting in December, we can do groups. So we've agreed that we'll do 0 to 5, right? And then 6 to 7. Guys, I'm sorry, my brain is low on juice. 6 to 12, is that what we said? Thank you, 6 to 12. Then we'll do teenagers, right? So Saturday, let me look at my calendar, because if I don't put it in now, then it's not gonna happen. Whatchamacallit. Thank you. My assistant told me not to forget the worksheet. Guys, go to my website under, what's that section? Under Let's Learn. I put a worksheet that is very helpful for parents to think about what their values are so that they can better decide how they're going to behave towards their children. Let me not lie, I didn't create that worksheet. My husband did because he was trying to help me when I was getting stressed about creating this class. So for all the work that he lovingly puts in, because he doesn't draw a salary from this business, go to Let's Learn. You'll find a worksheet there. Download it. And I encourage you to fill it out. It will improve outcomes for you, okay? So December 4th, December 11th, and December 18th. Those are the 3 Saturdays I have. After that, the remaining is in January, right? You couldn't find it. The link there, my assistant just puts the link in there. So just click. She saw your comment and she did. Thank you so much, Foluke. Everybody, please help me give Foluke a whoop. She has been working so hard. Then I also have another person on my team who's called Valerie. Look, they have worked. I have worked them to their bones this past few weeks and they've stayed positive and everything. So give Foluke a shout out and give Valerie a shout out. That's my phenomenal team. And then Mr. Gbemi, who has been doing the worksheets in the back and doing everything that can to be supportive. and Alexis, who made pancakes, and David, who brought the pancakes. I'm surrounded by such an amazing team of support, and we keep the environment very positive because we are looking out to catch, we're trying to catch ourselves being good. Does that make sense? And I feel like I just invalidated the man's entire existence by calling him Mr. Gbemi, because I would be so irritated if somebody called me Mrs. Debola. So please, his name is not Mr. His name is not Mr. Gbemi, his name is Adebola. Right, closing thoughts. We're setting up classes on the 4th, on the 11th, and on the 17th, right? Please send me an email, right? In the subject line, right? 6 to 12. My email is hello@untangledtogether.com, right? 6 to 12. I'm interested in the 6 to 12 class. I'm interested in the 0 to 5 class. You know what we're going to do with those classes? We will record them so that somebody can watch them after. They'll pay to watch. The only downside is you will not be able to ask your own very personal question and address your situation. So, those are the 3 classes we're doing, right? We said toddlers 0 to 5, 6 to 12, kids and teens, right? So those 3 classes, what are your other needs? Put them in the chats. Let's see what class we can create, because I'm really ready to tap out for the year. I'll not work again until January. We'll continue classes in January after that. So tell me the class you need as soon as this relationship. That's my specialty. Wow. Thank you, Uju. Thank you so much. You're awesome. Relationships are tricky because do couples therapy now. Do couples therapy for relationship. Schedule a one-on-one. Insecurely attached adults. That sounds like a one-on-one session because you'll be very personal things that we are discussing, right? So guys, go to your email now. Send it. You know the reason why I'm asking you to send it? I will then put you in a mailing list when I create the class now. If you send the email now, you will get information about how to sign up now. My classes aren't free, guys. Right? We've cleared that up. So don't act surprised when you get the link. They will be $25, okay? Or you can like buy an old one. I think those ones are $10. Repeat the email address, hello@untangledtogether.com. Okay? Also, emotional self-regulation is the class that you need. After you have taken this, is the course that you need. That one is not a live class. It's a course. I already recorded it. Go to my website now. Foluke, please put the link in the chat for people to go and get that course. You need that emotional self-regulation course because it's the foundation, not the date we want. You are not emailing a date. You are emailing the category of class that you want. I'm not giving out special dates. I'm teaching a class at a fixed time. If you're able to make it, great. If you're not able to make it, you can watch the replay, okay? So Foluke has put the link in the thing. Click on courses. You need that emotional self-regulation class because you cannot model all this good behavior. Excuse me, you can't model it to your kids. The same way if you don't speak French, you cannot teach your kids French. If your children need French for survival, you will first go and learn French, then teach them. So you personally need the skills in your repertoire, right? Then you can teach it to your kids. So go and take that course. That's what you need. Instead of you to pay $100 to me for a one-on-one course to address it, you're going to pay half of that, a fraction of the amount a one-on-one session will cost, to then take the class by yourself, and then you can replay it and come back to it. If after you have taken it, you're now like, I still need personal one-on-one work, then you deserve to invest in yourself. Schedule a one-on-one session. Any other questions? This is a good place to wrap up. I love you guys, but I'm tapped out. Email is hello@untangledtogether.com, untangledtogether.com/courses. Is the people that email me that I will send the link to the class, because you know the thing about my groups is that they fill up really fast, but I cap attendance at 25. So if you email me now, I will send you the link to register for the class, right? If you're unable to take the class now, when we put it on the website, you can watch the replay. The downside though, is that you will not be able to address your own very specific concern. So do you want to address the concern in a one-on-one with me and schedule an initial exploratory session? Fine. Yes, you can pay for it in USD. There should be a link there. I'm surprised there's no link. Foluke, what's going on? I sent you a link. Who's the person that's asking me about paying for emotion class in NGN? Oh, okay. Foluke says that she's put the link there. You need to click manual payment to pay in USD. So you have the option of paying in Naira or paying in USD. I tried to make it super easy for everybody. So any other questions? Let's wrap it up. Let me answer your very specific questions now. I'll save this recording and try and put it on YouTube so you guys can watch it later. If you have any questions, if there's a class for it, I'll just refer you to the class. If you ask me a specific question, I'll ask you to schedule a course. But if you're emailing me your personal challenges, you can understand that responding and doing the work is actually work. So I can't work over email. You need to schedule something, you know, for yourself, and you are worth the investment. Please take that emotional self-regulation class. It's not even just because of your kids, because of your own self. So you'll find out that instead of always popping off and responding in ways that you're not proud of, constantly ending up with egg on your face, you can choose your response for yourself. Your own personal quality of life will improve, because I mean, you could easily spend, you know, that much money on, on a dress or on getting your hair braided, right? So do you deserve the investments that can directly improve your relationship, yourself first, then your relationships by extension? And when I say your relationships, your romantic relationships, if you're in a partnership, your relationship with your children, your relationship with your peers, your friends, your co-workers. If you're a leader, if you're a manager, you become a better manager just because you learned how to emotionally self-regulate, and you will literally turn the trajectory of your life around just because you learned something new. You deserve, and that's why I made sure I recorded that course, so that you could have something that, you know, you can use to improve outcomes for your own self. So I hope you take advantage of it. I think it's a good place to wrap up. I just searched for your website. Okay, no, I think we've responded to the website. Will I do a session? I think I answered that as well. There's going to be a lot of emails, guys. When I do classes, it usually ends up being overwhelming. I promise I'm not ignoring you. I will try to get to it. It's a lot of work, but we will try. I really wish you guys all the best. I believe that everybody deserves a chance, including people who haven't done so great up until now. So the only thing that you're going to hear from me is compassion, especially because you're admitting that you want to do better, which is a big step. So it's okay if you don't know everything. It's okay if you have made mistakes. The day you decide to course correct, when we know better, we'll do better. If I can unlearn the harmful ones that I had, then we can all unlearn into, and create communities, find other people who are like you, who are sharing the same, so you guys can share your struggles. I cannot create the community. I already work way too much. Somebody has told me to create like a group and community. I don't have the time, nor do I have the capacity. I don't even have the desire. So I encourage you to create your own group. In fact, if you create your group and you now say, let me come and teach your group. So instead of one person to have paid for one session, and then there's 10 of you, right? Create your own group. Find your sister friends, your brother friends. If you are in like family groups or people who help each other, get yourselves together and say, guys, let's learn to do better. There's somebody that can teach us. So shoot me an email or go on the website. There's a place where you can send me a message for one-on-one consultations. So right there, that I want to schedule a toddler class for a group of my friends. There's 10 of us, and I'll let you know what it will cost. So gather yourselves together, create your own community. I don't want to be anybody's community manager. I just don't have the time. I work too much already. So create your community. My own is that I've learned the learning. Nina said, if anyone creates a toddler group, add me. Oh. You guys, you want to do that? For look at how can we help them without making a group? I'm not making any group for anybody. I have a firm boundary around that. Who wants to make a toddler group? Somebody assign yourself as the toddler grouper. It's just not going to be my job. Somebody should take ownership of it now. Guys, take ownership of it. Somebody should make the group and all of you add yourselves. Please just don't involve me or add me. I'm not going to come. What will the responsibilities be? You guys will organize yourself. Is it not people that have common problems together that gather themselves together to help themselves? Right? All right. I'm going to, if I end the meeting, the chat is going to end as well. So I don't know how you all want to do it, but somebody put their email there and everybody can copy it. The 6 to 12 group I was saying I'll create is a class that I'm going to teach. But I'm encouraging you to create your own community by your own selves, okay? So if you email me about 6 to 12, I'm sending you a link to register for a class, and I'm going to do it today. So if you want to send your email, send it today so you can get into that class. Somebody should put their email, maybe not drop your number so you don't get spammed, put your email. Toddler group. Luchexi, I don't want to say your name wrong, but somebody has put a name for the toddler group. Guys, copy it. My problem is that this video is going to be too long to upload. I want to wrap up. Get the toddler group. So toddler group, somebody has put the email. You all get yourselves together. You can discuss the things, you can share information, you can give each other like tools and tips and tricks in a way that the community helps the community. Because if it's me, you will pay me to help you, but the community can help. Somebody has put for 6 to 12. You guys are amazing. I love that. You guys are amazing. So Dee has said you should email her. And you're welcome, Deshola. I really, this is work that I love and enjoy. So gotta go, guys. It was great having you. Hasta luego. Hasta mañana. Amen. I'm saying amen to all this. God bless me. I need all of God's blessings right now. Have a good one, guys. Have a good one. Thank you. I will enjoy my holiday. I really need that. I really need that holiday. I'm leaving this country to go and chill for a week. I'm so glad. You're welcome, guys. You're welcome. I'm glad that you find my work helpful. It's so reinforcing to me. So remember, tell a friend to tell a friend. And follow our social media so that way, if there are updates and everything, and go and subscribe on the website so you won't miss things. Oh, thank you, Tommy. Tommy says, I'm brilliant. When will the video be uploaded to YouTube? Definitely not today. I mean, I'll try and see, but it's work. I'll see if Oluke can do it for me, or else you guys will see it when I come back from vacation. What's the social media page? Untangled Together. Just, you guys go to the website. All the information that you need is there. Foluke, put the website again so everybody can find go to the website, join the mailing list so you don't miss new updates when next we're going to have another class. Untangled Together on Twitter and Instagram. So go to the website, you'll find the information that you need there, information on how you can schedule a one-on-one. All right, shout out to Bemi. Oh, thank you. I'm glad. Bye, guys. Uncle Wala say, Uncle Wala was here. Oh, thank you so much. I learned a lot of the things I know now from you. So thank you, Uncle Wala. Thank you. All right, fam. Goodbye. Have a good one. God bless you. We're going to do right by these kids, honestly. We're going to do better. God will help us. Bye. Thank you, Tolulope. Thank you, Nkiruka. Bye. Thank you, Foluke. Thank you, Valerie. You guys are awesome. Thank you, Clara. Thank you, Siri. Thank you, Ayo. All right, bye. I'm turning this thing to a shout out. I want to make a request to my daddy and my mommy and all right, bye.